Question number 5, Dr David Clark.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Finance and asks, based on Treasury's pre-fu forecasts, how much faster will exports have to grow relative to the rest of the economy from the March 2016 year to 2025 to achieve the government's 40% export target?
Honourable Bill English.
Mr Speaker, if the member doesn't mind, I'll just explain the basis of the numbers so that we don't have endless questioning on this, on using different numbers. The target the government set is for real exports of goods and services as a percentage of real GDP. On that basis, Stats New Zealand report that real exports of goods and services have increased from 31.9% of the real economy in 2009 to 33.3% in 2013, despite the headwinds of a recession and the global financial crisis and the high dollar. The member, of course, uses nominal value of exports of goods and services, which includes, for instance, increases and decreases in the prices of them. And we don't think that's an adequate measure of the degree of export intensification in the economy. The Business Growth Agenda update earlier this year said that the ambitious 40% target won't be easy. It will require New Zealand to roughly double total exports by 2025. In terms of the question, real exports would have to grow by just over twice the rate of the real economy to reach the government's export target of 40% of GDP.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Dr David Clark.
Is the fact that exports have fallen from close to 33% as a proportion of the economy when he took office to now under 30% a sign of success of or failure of his goal of rebalancing the economy toward exports?
Honourable Bill
Well, Mr
English.
Speaker, having indulged the member with an explanation of the basis of the target, he then proceeded to completely ignore the explanation. The target is real exports of goods and services as a percentage of real GDP. In the most common terms, the volume of goods and services as a proportion of the volume of the economy. The member is using the nominal measure, and the nominal measure includes changes in price. So, for instance, the drop in the dairy prices would mean a drop, under his calculations, in exports as a proportion of the economy. Now, we don't think that is the best measure. It's a measure, but it's not the best measure. So I simply disagree with the member's assertion. Whatever numbers he's using are not related to our target.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Dr David Clark.
Is the fact that even with terms of trade at 40-year highs, the OECD says we'll have the second worst current account deficit in the developed world this year, and the IMF says we will have the worst, a sign of success or failure of his goal of rebalancing the economy?
Honourable Bill English.
Okay, well, Mr Speaker, the member should be a bit careful about asking that question, because at the peak of the last economic cycle under the previous government, the current account deficit was minus 8% of GDP, minus 8. And I think currently it's at less than half of that. So yes, that is some success.
Mr Speaker.
Supplementary question, Dr David Clark.
Does he really think his aim of rebalancing the economy is achievable, given that even with New Zealand's terms of trade at their highest in a generation because of the good fortune of historically high dairy prices, under his own economic settings we still have a current account deficit and exports as a proportion of the economy are declining?
Honourable Bill English.
Well, Mr Speaker, I simply disagree with the member's assertion that exports are declining. The price of some of them has declined. There's no doubt about that. But the measure of the real volume as a proportion of the total volume of the economy, it has grown. And, I mean, this is one difference between the government and the opposition. We believe New Zealand exporters have done very well over the last 4 or 5 years, despite difficult circumstances. The opposition think they're hopeless. Well, most of them, I think, supported this government in the election and back our policy mix, which is encouraging them to become more competitive. And the numbers I've quoted show some progress, certainly not enough. The target's 2025, and we believe that if we continue to pick up the pace under sensible policies, the export sector may be able to get there.
Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary question, Dr. David Clark.
Why does he think getting further and further away from his own target is a sign of success?
Mr. Speaker,
the Honourable Bill English.
Because we aren't getting further and further away from our own target. We're getting a bit closer despite the fact that circumstances have been pretty difficult. And if you're looking at the rate of progress over the next 4 or 5 years, once the construction, high level of construction runs through, and in Christchurch and Auckland we catch up, then there will be more resources, for instance, more people available to go to the export sector, so I'd expect some progress over the next few years, and then a faster rate of progress from about 2018-19 onwards.
Question number 6 in the name of Dr. Russell Norman.